Well, good evening and welcome to our Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall. Tonight, we are having a conversation, and we hope it is just that, a conversation that includes you, everyone who chose to view in and join us tonight, about affordable housing. If you've watched the news over the past year, you know that it is something that has impacted an awful lot of the aspects of our lives here in Northern Michigan. So tonight, we are having a discussion with three experts in the field when it comes to housing. Joining us now, Yarrow Brown, Director with Housing North, Ashley Halliday-Schmant with the Northwest Coalition to End Homelessness, and Nikki Bash with the Grand Traverse Band. She's the Housing Director there. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to jump right into this, but in order to understand where we're coming from, I've asked each of our panelists to tell us a little bit about the organization that they work with and what their organization is doing when it comes to addressing housing. So Yara, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about Housing North.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for having me. So we are a regional nonprofit. We cover the 10 counties in Northwest Michigan, and we were formed in 2018 to help address the barriers to housing through communications and awareness, policy and advocacy, and capacity building all around housing.
Nikki?
Yes, thanks for having me. I am with the Grand Traverse Band. We are here to serve the Grand Traverse Band tribal members, other federally recognized tribal members, and then all other members of the community, providing and promoting safe and adequate and affordable housing opportunities for all those included.
And Ashley.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Halliday-Schmant, and I'm the director of the Coalition to End Homelessness. So what we do is we really guide the vision and the strategy of the regional work to end homelessness, which means our goal is to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time across Northwest Michigan.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Yarrow, let's start with you, because I know that this year there was some fascinating work and studies done on our housing situation here in Northern Michigan. For those of our viewers who are not aware, how would you describe the current housing situation when it comes to affordable housing across the Northern Michigan area? How would you describe it?
Well, I guess I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We are definitely in a housing crisis in Northwest Michigan, and our recent housing needs assessment, which came out in June of 2023, showed that across the income spectrum, from those experiencing homelessness all the way up to market rate housing, we need over 31,000 units between 2022 and 2027 in our 10 county region. So we have an incredible need, but I feel like we've been making some pretty great strides in our community and doing the best we can to bring as many units across the income spectrum as possible.
Ashley, when we are that shy of units needed, what does that lead to?
Yeah, so the solution to end homelessness is housing. And so when we don't have enough affordable housing, really in our region for anyone, like Yarrow said, across the income spectrum, people who are marginalized or marginalized populations, like people experiencing homelessness, are disproportionately affected by that. So if someone with a pretty high paying job is unable to find housing that they can afford in our region, people making around 30% of that area median income it's almost impossible to find housing.
And Nikki, when you, in your current role, when you don't have enough affordable housing, what is the impact through your organization?
So we see a lot of family stacking. We see a lot of overcrowding. We see a lot of couch surfing, and unfortunately, we do see a lot of homeless living on the streets.
Yar, do we see migration? Do we see people leaving the area to go to more affordable communities where there is more affordable housing? Do we see that?
Yes, we do. We are losing families. The study that I mentioned, the housing needs assessment, did break it down by county and by household, I guess, age bracket. So we are definitely losing people that are younger in our workforce, and we are gaining more older retirees in our region. And so there's definitely a shift that's happened since COVID, but I think it's been happening slowly. And we really do want to attract and retain the talent and people that want to live and work here, especially, you know, families that are coming back to our region, or anybody. We also, in the study, it showed that we have a lot of people who are on the wait list for vouchers. Over 8,600 people are waiting to receive a voucher in our region, and there really are no units to place people. And so, you know, that is a housing choice voucher. So that's an opportunity for a property manager or somebody to accept guaranteed, you know, rents through a program. And we really see a lack of opportunity for people accepting those. So I think that's a huge problem. People want to come and live here, and it's a desirable place. And there really is a lack of opportunity for those that currently live and work here, let alone those, you know, who want to move here for a job or for other reasons to be close to family. So it's a concern. And I think it's not just in Grand Traverse County, you know, it's across all 10 counties that we serve. And it's also a national and state problem too. So we're not alone here, but I think it's exacerbated by many reasons, you know, in our region. And so we're working on those as much as we can.
You mentioned something there, and just so that I understand this, so there are voucher programs available. So essentially, this is help for people to be able to afford someplace to rent. Is that really simplifying it, but is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And so that money comes, I assume, from the federal government?
Yes.
It comes into our community. It goes to people who could use this for help, but they can't find a place to spend this money to pay rent at. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. Ashley, I don't know, or Nikki, if you have, but I think that's my understanding. And we really have a sheer lack of units across that whole spectrum, but definitely units that would accept vouchers in our region. And that's a huge problem.
Ashley, Nikki, is Yara dead on that?
Yeah, she's exactly right. Every year, our allocation of housing choice vouchers specifically for people experiencing homelessness decreases just because we can't find enough places for people to rent. These vouchers have rent limits and rent caps associated with them. And so if we don't have enough units where the landlords will rent to that, you know, under that cap,
Right.
People lose the opportunity.
So this has come up before, and Ashley, every time I drive down the parkway, I see the banners that hang there, and it's beautiful, but it's simple, but it's beautiful, and it's housing ends homelessness, right? So why don't we just build, and I don't mean this to sound flippant, okay, but why don't we just build more affordable housing? And that, I assume, and I see based on the smiles that is an onion. It's way too simplified, but let's ask the question. Why don't we just build more housing that more people can afford? It's far more complex than that, I imagine. But Ashley, you're nodding, so you get to go first.
I laugh, and it's not flippant, and it's not serious. It's just incredibly difficult. And I'll pass it over to Nikki because she's an expert and she gets it done. The tribe has created some of the most affordable housing for the most vulnerable people in our community. So I'll let her speak to that. But right now we're also kind of in this place where it's a pretty specialized thing to do to develop affordable housing. Our region needs housing of all kinds. We need single family housing. We need just condos and apartments, and we also need affordable housing. And that is the most difficult to make the numbers work. We have developers call us and they'll, you know, maybe be interested, but when you kind of look at the construction costs and the land costs and, you know, the costs associated with building affordable housing in our region, it makes it not very desirable from a financial aspect for developers.
All right, Nikki, how have you been able to do this? And then I want you to tell me a little bit about the property that's being developed off of Herkner Road in town. So how have you been able to meet that need?
Sure. So I have been in my current role as the housing director for almost 13 years. I have that entire time have seen a need, and every year the need does not decrease, it has increased. My waiting lists have gone astronomical. I end up with people just not even wanting to put their name on the waiting list because they're at wit's end. And it came down to funding. Like, how can we fund this? Where can I get the money? um it was it Where can I get the land? Where can I get the money? The tribe purchased 72 acres off of Herkner Road back in 2015, I believe. And since then, we have been working to develop. Um, the tribe did invest some of their own money. We did put up four-unit buildings, and we were renting those at market rates. Still lower for the area. They are still at for a 2-bedroom at $999. So we are trying to still keep them affordable as much as possible, even as a market rental. I tried, third time was the charm for me, to receive low-income housing tax credits from the state. At the same time, I was also able to get some competitive funds through the federal government, and also some congressional funds for our water and sewer to go in on that property. So I'm very pleased to say that we are the recipient of low-income housing tax credits, competitive IHBG. We got 36 units that were in the process of construction. I have 20 units currently, or 24, excuse me, currently in different stages of development. 8 of them are actually have people moved in, and the other 12 will start in the spring and be concluded by the end of next year. I went for it again, and I got it again. So I'm ecstatic. And we got another 36 units that will start in the spring on that same property there. That whole property can hold up to 173 units, including mixed development from our market rentals, the low-income housing tax credit units. You cannot charge more than 30%. They will never be charged more than 30% of their income, and you must be at or below 80% of the median income to live there. And then we also have some homeowner opportunities there as well. And so just going from there, it's a very, very small, minute number, I know, compared to what we need in Michigan, but I'm very pleased to be able to start bringing these to Northern Michigan.
Well, Nikki, it may seem like a small number in comparison, but that to me seems like a large number if we're talking 150 to 200 units in what was, I am familiar with that field. It was a wide open field, and you're talking about putting in infrastructure like roads and sewers and all of that. And we are 8 years into this project and we're getting people in there. That's a major undertaking. I consider that a success, right?
Yes. Like I said, I'm very proud of it. But I want more, and I know we need more. It's so disheartening of how much we really, really need.
Well, and Nikki, you explained how many different sources of funding, which I assume requires a lot of paperwork, applications, a lot of regulations, a lot of steps to get to that.
Yes.
Across the board, Yarrow and Ashley, feel free. Are there a lot of challenges and hurdles as opposed to, well, let's just go pound some studs together and build some homes? Trying to do this and meet all those criteria, there are some extra challenges and hurdles that perhaps if you're building privately for profit, large scale mansions or whatever, you don't have to jump through. Could it be easier from where each of you stand? Could the process be streamlined to make it more efficient and easier to build affordable housing? And what kind of impact would that have? Ashley, you're nodding, so you go first.
I'll let Yarrow go first.
Okay, Yarrow.
I was just going to say, yes, it definitely could. And I think we're all smiling and laughing because, yes, it could be easier. It could be more streamlined. I think that's where Housing North comes in, is trying to advocate and encourage units of government to figure out ways they can streamline development projects and not drag it out for 18 months to approve it. So we can get projects in the pipeline. And I think that's just one example. But I think any way we can work to reduce the barriers and reduce the overall costs, especially when it comes to like affordable housing, we definitely need that in our region. Ash, I don't know if you want to expand on that.
I think the only thing I'd add is, Mark, as you were saying, kind of the applications and all of this kind of hoop jumping that you have to do. That's been years. I mean, that's historically why it's been very difficult to build affordable housing, especially in rural communities and in our region. Now that has changed a little bit at the state of Michigan, thank goodness, in the past year, I believe. But there were things that were in place that were just unnecessary barriers that make sense for urban environments, like walkability scores, the low income tax credits that Nikki was mentioning are very, very competitive. And so every point that you get really matters when you apply for these things. And if you're building in, the outskirts of Grand Traverse County, you're not really able to walk to, the hospital or doctor or grocery store or whatever. They've removed that barrier for the most part, but it's things like that. We're always kind of up against the competitive nature of urban environments, just based on where we live.
Has the sentiment towards affordable housing, building affordable housing projects, has the sentiment changed? Have we shifted a little? Not in my backyard. Are you still fighting that, or has the general public softened in that because they've realized how critical it is that people have places to live? Yarrow?
I think it's a little of both.
Okay.
I mean, I think it depends on the community. I think we've seen and had some real successes and seen people come around. In our region, we had 2 projects recently approved using the new tools for housing. So a new pilot for workforce housing, and somebody in our region using the HTIF or brownfield TIF for housing. So I think we have some huge wins, but I do think it takes an incredible amount of work. And we do still need to bring people alongside, especially when it comes to multifamily and higher density units. I think that's still pretty uncomfortable depending on where you are in our region. But just today in some of my conversations, we really need to think about why you build density, where it needs to be, and why you build closer to infrastructure. And we live in a region that has high quality natural resources and are surrounded by water. So I think we do need to think about it comprehensively and really encourage people to show up for housing where it makes sense and to support it across all income levels, because we really are in a situation where no matter who you are, I think somebody who's struggling to find housing right now. And I believe we have a community who cares and wants to see this happen, but sometimes it is uncomfortable because if it's happening right next door to you, how do you feel about it? And so I just think it's important to have those conversations. And I think, Nikki getting 2 low-income housing tax credit projects on that property is huge for our region. And it does speak to our voices, I guess, being heard, and also just the diligence and the continuing to apply and make things happen. I mean, that really is what we have to keep doing in our region. And I think our region keeps trying and keeps going for it. And that says a lot.
Yeah, Nikki, if you started the project off of Herkner 8 years ago, I imagine that the sentiment was different 8 years ago than it is now. I think a lot more people are believing, okay, there's a crisis. How did you navigate that? How did you get neighbors, or how do you get to the point where people start seeing developments, houses, apartment units going up and people being excited about that as opposed to fighting?
Sure. Yeah, we did. We did get a lot of pushback. We got a lot of, a lot of comments of not in my backyard because there is a subdivision right next to it. I think there's just a lot of negative connotation with lower income housing, uh, the families, et cetera. They're not thinking about, the young families just starting out. They're not thinking about the single moms, who are working and they need a place to come home to every night. And, it really, as I move forward and built the units and they're beautiful, I I think that really helped change a little bit of the attitude as well. Um, to see that, we're not talking about little boxes of white buildings with, black roofs just all over the place with, we really made them have some character, some beauty, so everybody could be, um, proud of where they live and their community.
Well, I'm sure all the projects that follow after you appreciate you kind of blazing the trail on that by putting up a nice structure. So people be like, oh, it'll be like that. It opens our eyes a little bit to being like, that is appealing. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Um, all right. So tell me something good for each of your organizations. Tell me something good that happened in the past year. I'm kind of a big, rose and thorn kind of guy. So what was a rose that your organization experienced last year in a time of crisis? Yara, you want to start?
I think for me, seeing our region wrap their arms around these new tools and be poised and ready to apply has been huge because we worked really hard to bring more opportunities to our region, and to see developers and communities really ready to embrace them has been awesome. We really are one of the first communities in the region to embrace the new housing tools. So that's been huge.
That's a positive. We'll take that. Nikki, what's been a rose this past year? Looking back, it's the end of the year. We do this. What's something that you look at and say that was a real positive?
Well, besides, having these new projects really coming into light and everything, it really has opened the eyes at HUD as well. I've had the regional administrator visit. We had plans for the deputy director of HUD to visit. They've really taken note. They've taken note of our area. They've taken note of my projects, and just, really how supportive the area truly has been in receiving these.
It's a big difference. And Ashley, what's something positive that you experienced this year?
Yeah, a couple things. The city of Traverse City actually approved 2 pilot projects, so 2 payment in lieu of taxes for housing developments that will have set aside units for people experiencing chronic homelessness. So when we think about people most affected by our housing shortage in the region, it's people experiencing chronic homelessness, who are folks who are disabled and have experienced homelessness for a year or longer. So one example of that is Annika 2. Annika 2 is going to be a development by Woda Cooper, who will have set aside units for people experiencing chronic homelessness. And then most recently, Goodwill Northern Michigan was approved for a pilot by the city for the refurbishment and acquisition of East Bay Flats. And so that was existing housing that will eventually convert into permanent supportive housing. And to kind of go back on your question earlier about, the not in my backyard sort of a thing, I was involved the first time East Bay Flats got developed into housing. It used to be what was it, Country Inn and Suites, or I don't know. It was a motel.
Yeah.
We, with the Housing Commission, turned it into housing, and that was what, 5, maybe 6 years ago. Very different conversation now. So it's,
Really?
yeah, people in the neighborhood, when we had our public comment at the city commission, the biggest concern of people were, what are you going to do with the people who live there? You're not going to displace them, are you? So, I mean, that's very different than 6 years ago, when the questions, it's fear of the unknown. But once you kind of engage in a conversation with folks and show them that people are people and everyone deserves housing, it's a lot different of a conversation.
And I imagine, Nikki, when you can show people the projects that you're working on, like the Herkner project, it's much easier the second time to come around and have an ask, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We, you know, and to have such great scoring applications, and then to come through again, just to, you know, still be able to show that the need is still here. It hasn't gone away. You know, 36 units didn't wipe that out. And to re-ask for another 36 units was, you know, again, just I'm so ecstatic that I have the 2 projects and that I'm going forward with these 72, and you know, to see what is going to come in the future, it makes me happy.
You guys know more about housing than any 3 people I know. So I'm going to ask you this, because a lot of fingers get pointed, and I don't know the answer to this. Short-term rentals, are they the enemy that they've been made out to be? Can you find a balance? Do they really have an impact?
I can speak a little bit to the impact. So we've had both clients who were living in units. I believe the most impacted was when landlords decide to turn the entire house into it. So it was a house maybe split up into a few apartments. That has happened over and over again, where we actually have quite a few affordable rental units. Landlord decides to sell that and then turn all of them into short-term rentals. So that's happened quite a few times, and it has displaced many people. I think in 1 year alone during the pandemic year, so during the past few years, 1 year alone, we had 10 landlords do that. Another example of that is someone who is in this work, was living in a very nice apartment complex, not affordable. I mean, affordable, but not tax credit or anything like that. Landlord decided, nope, they're all going short-term rentals, and someone doing this work was displaced. So it can happen to anyone. I don't think it's not the only enemy. I think, you know, we have a lot of things to wrestle with in our region. We have tourism, considerable growth in Traverse City, that were we ready for it? I don't know. We're still kind of reeling, right, from the pandemic and folks choosing to not live in cities anymore, or big cities, and kind of head our way. So it's not the only enemy, but not regulating short-term rentals enough can be a huge part of the problem.
Getting a head nod there from Yarrow.
I was going to say, Ashley, that was really well said. I mean, I think too, we've also seen people who had year-round rentals that would not normally be up here. You know, they were second homes for people. And so during the pandemic, quite a few, I would say, you know, year-round renters were displaced because people decided to move up here because they could now work remotely. But yeah, we're really encouraging our units of government to fully understand their housing stock and make the best decisions around zoning and where short-term rentals should and could be, so that they really make sure they have enough year-round rentals. We know we need them, but I think what Ashley just said is a really clear example example of how people have been displaced. And then we already had a lack of units to begin with. And so I think it just exacerbated our existing problem. But if there is a way, that we can create that balance and create a revenue stream that would support housing in our region, I think that is needed. And we're looking at ways we can do that, whether or not it's taxing short-term rentals or just figuring out a way to capture some of the revenue that's coming in from seasonal and short-term rentals to go into a fund that would help housing. I think that's, really needed. And I did forget one thing I just wanted to celebrate, because Nikki's on here too, but we have our first statewide housing plan. And that does seem like just another plan, but it is a huge thing. And we have Nikki Bosch, who's on the call here, who's on that statewide housing partnership group. And then we have another Nikki. We joke about the different Nikkis, but two people from our region, sit on the statewide housing partnership. And that's, I think, really huge, because we are getting that voice not only from the tribal community, but from Northwest Michigan, to go back to the state and help them understand, really what the impact is in our region. 26% of short-term rentals or seasonal rentals fall to Northwest Michigan. That's just 10 counties out of 83. So it does impact us, but I also think the fact that we're desirable and people want to come up here and live here, and that is also part of it. And that's a good thing, right? We want to grow and accept people, but it also is something we have to plan and manage for. We can't just put up a gate and say, sorry, no more people. And so how we do that is really, I think, an opportunity in our region.
Well, Nikki, congratulations and thank you for your service. Like that it's very nice to have our region represented there to speak up. All right, we're gonna wrap this up because it's been about a half an hour. There is no, Yara, if you've taught me anything over the years, it's that there is no quick, simple, one solution fix that can come from one person to make this all right. That it's going to take everybody pitching in, and it's going to take government, it's going to take private, it's going to take organizations. So it's Christmas wish list time. What's on your wish list this year to make the next year for what you do for housing easier, better, more efficient, more effective? So what do you need to have happen next year to put you in a better spot and your organization in a better spot to do what you do? It could be a wish. Somebody's got to flinch first, right? Ashley, what do you got?
I was waiting for Yarrow.
So Ashley, if something could happen next year that would be really helpful for you, it's a wish list. Sometimes miracles happen this time of year too. So what would you like to see happen? What would have a big impact looking forward to 2024?
Yeah, I think so. This is 2024 will be our second year of a 5-year plan to end chronic homelessness. So last year we launched an initiative to end chronic homelessness in the greater Grand Traverse region by 2028. And with some of the units I've already mentioned that have been approved, some partnership with Nikki's units, I think, we're able to take the number down considerably. We're looking at needing about 75 permanent supportive housing units. So the most expensive, the most complicated type of affordable housing to do. We need about 75 units of those. So I think in 2024, if we can continue a few avenues to increase that. So increasing support, like getting people to really rally around the fact that we need this in our region. We need more housing. We hear time and time again from our elected officials that giving public comment matters. And I know it's not always like what people really want to do on a Monday night at 6:30 or 7 after you've worked all day and all of that stuff. But we keep hearing that really matters. And so helping people understand that getting in front of your elected officials, talking about housing, talking about the need, sharing personal stories about that can really go a long way. And all of that really impacts our efforts, like ending chronic homelessness. If folks are able to see kind of the spectrum of need, they're more likely to kind of focus in on our marginalized folks who need housing the most.
Well said. Nikki, what's on your wish list for next year?
So it's more than my wish list. It is at my absolute goal to apply for and get again funding for an actual permanent supportive housing structure. We're looking to do 50 to 60 units. We will do this in Leelanau County, up by on the reservation, so that it is in close proximity to all of the services that anyone who lives in a permanent supportive housing type unit would need, whether it be veterans assistance, whether it be behavioral health assistance, whether it just be medical assistance for the elderly, all that sort of thing. So we are definitely, like I'm not even going to say if I get that, I know we're going to get that funding and we're going to move forward and we're going to bring another 50 to 60 units and really help Ashley's 75 units that is needed and cut that down.
I sense no sense of iffiness there whatsoever. That's going to happen, right? All right, Yarrow. What would make for a great 2024 for you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how proud I am to be on a call with such ambitious and amazing women to be moving this forward. But I think for me, because all of those goals, are on my wish list too, but I think really having our community embrace these new tools and continue to not be afraid about giving incentives to projects that really are going to make a difference to make sure that they can happen in our region, because we really are at a place where there are so many barriers. So I guess I hope people will follow suit. Our communities will follow suit with Antrim County, the Village of Bel Air, the City of Traverse City, Grand Traverse County, to just say, yeah, we're going to invest in housing. Because Jenny Schutz, who wrote the book Fixer Upper, and if you haven't read it, everyone should read it, but she really is pointing out the fact that it does take all hands on deck, and it really is going to take our units of government, stepping up and participating in our region. They have, some of them have been resistant to that. So I guess I really wish that if I could wave a magic wand, they would all embrace these new tools and help Nikki and Ashley and I get more units built for those who really need them.
I think that's a perfect note to end it on. I hope that 2024 brings all that you're wishing for and more. Ashley, Yarrow, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for helping us better understand the situation. Thank you for what you do in the communities that you serve. It is appreciated. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark,
you.
for putting this.
Take care.